And Democratic Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin of Michigan joins me now. Her race is also rated a toss-up. Welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to ask you about the political drama that is unfolding in Georgia. I was just talking about it with Congressman Bacon. And I want to ask you about the response from the Democratic incumbent, Raphael Warnock, who has decided not to directly attack Herschel Walker, to address really these claims repeatedly on the campaign trail. Given the high stakes of Georgia, is that a mistake, Congresswoman?
I don't know. I mean, I think what Mr. Walker is doing himself is enough for voters to see, right? He's being accused of something, he's not admitting it, or he's dodging. People are saying that people make mistakes, but he's not admitting that mistake. I think I understand the instinct to just let him stand in the spotlight and answer for his own record and not take that as a moment to just kind of double down on the attack.
Okay, well, abortion is obviously an issue that you care a lot about. You have talked quite a bit about it, and abortion is actually on the ballot in your state. In fact, the ballot proposal would enshrine a right to an abortion. And opponents argue the problem with it is that it's too wide-ranging, that there are no limits on third trimester abortion. So let me put this question to you directly, Congresswoman. Would you like to see limits on third trimester abortions?
Yeah, I mean, the ballot initiative that we have says that you can have the right to an abortion up to the point of viability, and then afterwards it has to be because of the health of the mother deemed by a medical professional. So it's not abortion on demand, it's not through the 9th month, all these talking points that the Republicans are using because they know they're on their heels on this issue. So I support that ballot initiative. I think it's written correctly, and it codifies Roe in a state where, without that, we're facing a 1931 ban.
But again, just on that issue of third trimester abortions, should there be restrictions to that?
Yes, I agree with the proposal, which says up to viability, you have the right to make that decision on your own, but afterwards you need the input of a medical professional. I think that's the right place for our state, and frankly, I think for the country.
You have prided yourself on being a moderate Democrat, and I wonder if you think there is room within the conversation around abortion for Democrats who are anti-abortion, like John Bell Edwards or Representative Henry Cuellar.
Yes. I mean, I think for me, I represent a district that's Republican-leaning. The vast majority of my constituents identify as pro-life. And I've been at plenty of events as recently as yesterday where people will say, look, I'm a pro-life Democrat. But I think the distinction is that they're not trying to impose their will on this issue on other people, on other women, right? They have a personal conviction that they feel very firmly about. And I respect that, but they're not trying to say that their will has to be imposed on the rest of all women. And I think they have a place in this party. But I think they also will say very openly they don't believe the government should make that decision for women.
Let's talk about one of the top issues for voters in races all across this country right now, Congresswoman. Of course, that is the economy. Republicans, including your opponent, have accused you and Democrats of overspending, whether we're talking about the COVID relief bill or the latest Inflation Reduction Act. What do you say to that criticism that Democrats have actually made inflation worse by overspending?
Well, first of all, I think we can't dance away from the fact that inflation is a real issue that's affecting every single person in this country. I don't know one family that isn't making different decisions because of how bad inflation is. And we don't win any points by trying to pretend it's not there. It's there. I think for me, there's almost like a gleefulness about some Republicans, including my opponent, about how bad inflation is. There's a gleefulness when prices of gas are going up. But Congresswoman,
I guess I'm asking, do Democrats bear some of the responsibility? But do Democrats bear some of the responsibility? You control the White House, both chambers of Congress. Why shouldn't voters hold Democrats responsible for the economy?
I think they do. I think while I think inflation is obviously a worldwide phenomenon, I am open to the fact that we have to make decisions here in the United States. Democrats are in power. We're in the White House, in the House, and the Senate, even if it's slim margins. So sure, I do think that there is a rightful skepticism about particularly the last COVID package. And I think that's why you've seen a lot of us in Congress really shy away from another COVID package, even when the White House was proposing one this past summer. So I own it, but I think it It has to be reflected, across the world that it's a post-COVID phenomenon that we're trying to deal with the best we can.
Let's talk about student loan debt. Are you comfortable with President Biden's plan to forgive student loan debt, even though it's likely going to add $400 billion to the debt?
I did not support the proposal that the president put forward or the action that the president took forward. It's not that I don't understand that we have a crisis of college affordability. I represent Michigan State and 5 universities and colleges, but I thought it was a Band-Aid that didn't get to the underlying problem. I was vocal about that. I want to get to a better place on college affordability, but a one-off like this that doesn't help like a current freshman at Michigan State University, to me, is not, it's not the way I would have gone.
Congresswoman, given what we saw from OPEC this week, the decision to cut 2 million barrels of oil per day, do you believe that President Biden's trip to Saudi Arabia, that fist bump diplomacy, do you think that was a mistake?
You have to try. I appreciate his willingness to try, and there's nothing more important right now to inflation than the price of gas. So you have to do it. But I think the Saudis have made a really strategic error. And I can't say whether, the Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, overpromised to the president, or if he just absolutely threw that promise out the window. Either way, the Saudis are going to be living with this decision for a long time, right? We've been partners for 70 years. They had a strategic decision to make about whether to help the world economy and put more oil in there or to cut it back. Yep. At best, they made a decision that didn't help the rest of the world. At worst, they aligned themselves with Putin.
Congressman,
so we have a problem.
Congresswoman, let me ask you a little bit about politics. You have said that Democrats will support President Biden if he runs again in 2024. But I want to ask you personally, do you plan to support President Biden if he runs again in 2024?
He's the sitting president. If he decides to run again, I'm going to support him. The party's going to support him. That's, that has a long history in our country. But I have been very vocal, including with my own leadership in the House, that we need a new generation. We need new blood. Period. Across the Democratic Party, in the House, the Senate, and the White House. I think that the country has been saying that. And, I'm one of just a handful of members of Congress who hasn't voted for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. And I've said, I think we need new leaders. I would love to see some Midwestern leaders in there, right? That's been important to me, is to reflect the middle of the country. We're here, too. But I do think new blood is a good thing. But if the sitting president of the United States decides to run, we're going to support him.
All right, Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin, thank you so much for joining Meet the Press. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.